You're tuned in to the Mind of an Entrepreneur show with your host, myself, Sajda Wendy Muhammad. I am a multi-million-dollar business developer. I have developed business and real estate around the world, and I want to share with you my mental strategies, my technical strategies, and how I made it in the world of business. So I don't teach theory. I tell you about my life and introduce you to people who can also share with you what they've done to become successful. This is a practical show. This ain't a theory show. You don't want to miss it. So stay tuned.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judgest, and none can judge against Thee, and he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee, and I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
You belong to yourself. You're an independent people, created from the nation of free people. Yes, sir. You don't need to go nowhere but to yourself. Yes, sir. There will be a great separation. Yes, sir. So I said, it is on now.
The college is meant to prepare you for your future. That the time dictates that if we don't do something for ourselves as a people, we will be destroyed. And the aim of the enemy right now is to take us out.
We have God with us. We have Him as our guide. Yes, sir. We don't have to stand around here and ask the question, what must be done? Yes, sir. Get up and let's go and do something. Yes, sir. We cannot sit down. We cannot lay down. Yes, sir. We must get up. Yes, sir. And go to work.
Do you know what real joy is in life? Visioning something and bringing it into reality. That's real joy. Do you know what the next step in joy is? Behold how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell in unity.
Tonight, you need to fasten your seatbelts. We're going to hear from some of the greatest minds in the world. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of trusting our future and the future of our children into the hands of those who don't love us. I believe we need to revitalize black leadership.
Assalamu alaikum, or peace be unto you, as we would say it in English. Welcome to the Mind of an Entrepreneur show. I am your host, Sajda Wendy Muhammad, and tonight we're going to be talking about independent education. I have a very special guest, Sister JeanNate Muhammad. We're going to be talking about her company, Stepping Stones Online Education. Listen, the more options that we have to independently educate our children, I think the better off we are. I want to read to you a quote from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad about education. And for those of you who don't know, the sacrifices of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the early believers in the late 30s and the early 40s who were oftentimes arrested for truancy because they wanted to independently educate their children. He didn't want our children going to school and experiencing the trauma of racism. He wanted us to be independently educated in a manner that would train us up as gods and make us not only compete globally, but to dominate globally and be able to stand among the best of the best in the world. And that first begins with the manner in which he taught us to educate our children. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has sacrificed tremendously to make sure that we have independent education here in the Nation of Islam. And he has been an example. This has been an example. And our school is somewhat of a vanguard when you think about independent education for Black youth. You know, it's so easy to say, send them to private school. What about this chartered school? But a lot of us don't think about the fact that there were no other schools at a certain point in time. And somebody had to stand up to say, no, we have the right to have our own school systems. We have the right to educate our children in the manner in which we think is best. And I would like to tell you and let you know that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the early members of the Nation of Islam, along with his wife, Mother Clara Muhammad, were among those who fought for that right, that it just rolls off our tongue today. Okay, so before we get started, let me tell you what we got coming up. Saturday, we have is it week 2? Yeah, week 2 of the proper handling of people as taught to us by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We're going to do it. We're doing a series on that on the Saturday morning coffee talk, 6 a.m. right here, proper handling of people. And I think you all will enjoy this series. I think it's something that everyone from all walks of life can get something out of. And I encourage us to recognize truth and absorb truth and snatch it up and build our own educational platform, no matter where we hear it. And don't allow somebody else to tell you who and who you should not listen to when it comes to exploring truth and exploring information and receiving information that's going to help you to become a better person. And I like to say it, happier, healthier, wealthier, and experiencing more love. So that's Saturday at the Saturday morning coffee talks. And you see scrolling across the bottom is this wonderful project, the completion of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House. You can get your commemorative coin by going to sajdahouse.com. You can donate, sajdahousedonations.com, or via Cash App, $Mo Today. That's MOETODAY. I want to read this quote to you, and I may read this a couple times through our conversation. I'm going to bring our sister JeanNate on here in a minute, but here's a quote from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which really, to set it up properly, lends an understanding to the universality of the scope of the education that we should not only be providing with our children, but the scope that we should be focused on as individuals, both as adults and children. Because, let's face it, we should always be a student. We should never stop being a student. My mother always says that she tries to learn something new every single day. And we should all be studying to make ourselves new and to really become competitive globally. We want to be the best of the best. And I believe that we can do it. So here's the quote. The education and training of our children must not be limited to the 3 R's only. It should instead include the history of the Black nation, the knowledge of civilizations of man and the universe, and all sciences. That's from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I'm going to bring my sister in. Assalamu alaikum, Sister JeanNate.
Wa alaikum salam, Sister Sajda. How are you today, ma'am?
I'm doing well. I can't complain at all. I'm grateful for you to be on the show, and I thank you for allowing me to support your business and help you to promote and do what I can to help push you in front of the right people to expand and develop your business. And we can all receive those wonderful benefits that your calling is getting you to put out into the universe.
I'm very grateful and very honored to be here to share a little bit of our understanding of why independent education is very important, and it's beginning to be a dire need, especially in our community. So I'm very happy to be here to speak to you and your audience about that.
That's beautiful. Let's talk about that. Why is independent education so important for us, especially as Black people here today in the United States of America?
Well, number one, the education that is being put in front of us in the public school is just not catered to us. And it never was catered to us. But especially in this time, they're bringing in curriculums and standards to really bring us into a melting pot that we do not want to be a part of. But in the public school system, you have no choice. You have no say. My sister is an educator for the public school system, and she owns a beautiful home in DeSoto, Texas. And one of the things that she speaks on all the time is if you pay taxes, you have a right in your facility, in your community, to have the education that you desire. But unfortunately, this is a truth that we dream on, and it's just not our reality. It may be someone else's reality, but it's not the Black American reality. It just isn't.
So are we saying that the education that's out here is not addressing our sojourn here in America? It's not addressing our plight here in America, nor is it preparing us, as the messenger says, beyond the 3 R's to compete globally?
Yes, ma'am. That's exactly what we're saying. And I can fall back on a lecture that the minister did on called Fear, Faith, and Truth. And he was talking, and I'm paraphrasing, he was talking about an interview that he had with Barbara Walters. And she spoke of a philanthropist that was donating all of this money to Black communities. And she asked him, I'm paraphrasing, wasn't that good enough? And the minister said he ought to donate, because what he's doing is he's investing in his economy, in his world, and what he would have us to be. Not that he's giving money so that we can be ourselves, but we can be modeled after him. And we don't want that.
So investing in an education that supports an agenda that does not best serve us as Black people.
Exactly. And I think your paraphrase was a little closer than mine. So yes, ma'am.
I actually just listened to that lecture the other day, so I'm interesting that you referenced it. What happened to our educational system here in America? Because America used to pride itself on being number one. And I know for many of us, we went through school, we could learn a trade, we had home economics. Many of us, I know for myself, I took AP courses and advanced math and advanced science, and it was very competitive. Does that not exist anymore? Or are we saying that there are so many other things that are added into the mix that they're gonna melt together that it sort of takes away from the education? What say you?
Exactly. What I'm saying is they are absolutely still investing in those classes. You have STEM classes. You have CED classes, and CED classes are where you can graduate from high school and graduate with an associate's degree. They absolutely have those accolades. They have those beautiful fishing rods to fish you in. But here's the part: in order to get those goodies, you have to fall in with everything else that they want to give you. You still have to go into and accept beliefs and their understanding of life that is not parallel to what we believe is best for our lives. So yes, you get that. And not to go off topic, and sometimes that is what keeps us in the public school system, right? Because of all these glittering goals that they throw at us, but we're not focusing on the fact that that's a smoking mirror, right? There's something behind that we don't really pay much attention to. We only pay attention to the gold and the glitter that is being thrown at us, not knowing that all these other different measures that they're putting into the school system is affecting our children to the point where we don't know who our children are when they graduate.
So what's behind that is an agenda, and there's a couple elephants in the room here. One is, we can go all the way back to Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu, who talked about how our Black boys, and now even Black girls, but especially our Black boys, were not supported, have not been supported, have been put on a track from school that leads them to the prison industrial system, that ultimately allows them to come back into the world with no rights, replicating Jim Crow and all of that, but just, taking away their rights. How does independent education specifically benefit our boy children, our male children?
Because they're allowed to be who they were destined to be. Without the stress. Imagine being 5 years old and you're stressed going to school.
Right.
Without the traumatic experience that they experience every day. Our young men are not allowed to go to school and just be themselves. They walk in the school building automatically on the defense on one side, and on another side, they're automatically going in having to prove themselves. So when you're trying to prove yourself, you sometimes become a person that you truly are not, because you're trying to prove your strength and who I am and why I'm like this. And it just takes away the sincerity of who their hearts and minds really are. They're not allowed to be expressive of love. They're not allowed to be expressive of good character. All of these things that mom and dad build up into them from the time they are able to talk or speak to the age of turning 4 or 5, they walk into a school building and automatically the same day they automatically adjust to their environment, and their environment is not a positive environment for them.
So are you saying that, I think I understand what you're saying. What you're saying is that the agenda or the strict scrutiny to either put them on the path to prison or on the path to some other social norm that we're going to talk about becomes stressful to the boys in particular, because they don't want to end up on this list. They don't want to go to juvenile. They're not being treated. It seems to me like there's some kind of standard or metrics in place that are designed to discriminate against our Black boys. And it sounds like what you're saying is that this creates a stress. So when I think about that, when you made a question about stress, I loved school. It's just, I still love school and learning to this day. When I'm helping college students figure out what school they want to go through to, and we're going through the program, I find I want to go too, but I can understand that, though. I felt safe in school. But if you don't feel emotionally safe in school, then you're not going to like school, and school is not going to impact you in a positive way so that you desire to become a lifelong learner. So I think that that's important. And when we talk about your company, Stepping Stones Online Education, I think it's an important or an interesting skill set that we can give to our boys especially, but to our children in general, that you can learn independently.
Yes.
You can study independently. You don't always have to wait for somebody to feed you information. You can seek that information as well on your own.
Yes, dive into the earth and pull out what you wish, basically. And so I wanted to give you an example of the stresses that the example that I am speaking on when I say a defense mechanism. So I have a son, he is 21 now, and his name is JeanNate Naeem. Well, he was born in 2001. Right before 9/11. And I remember walking in the grocery store, and there was a Time magazine that had the name Jihad, and then behind the name, it had the towers blown up. So imagine what that effect is doing to people who don't know about Islam, the beautiful religion of Islam. So fast forward to my son being in kindergarten. And the kindergarten teacher asked the children to draw a picture of what they wanted to be when they grew up. My son drew a police officer. The teacher didn't know it was a police officer. She didn't ask. She looked at the picture and she saw a figure. She saw the gun. She saw the hat, and she saw the car with the lights on. So I'm getting called, and it's like the principal wanted to speak to me. I'm running up to the school thinking that there was something wrong with Jihad. And the teacher was literally in the office crying. And Jabril is crying, and the principal's trying to get everything under control. And I'm like, what's going on? And so she was like, your son was making pictures that was derogatory and offensive, and I was afraid for my life. And I said, well, what did he draw? And they showed me the picture, and I said, well, did you all ask him why did he draw that? And Jihad is in the chair. He don't know what's going on. He just crying because he thinks he's in trouble. Trauma, right? So I go to him and I said, well, Jihad, why did you draw this picture? And he said, well, Mommy, they asked me to draw what I wanted to be when I grow up. And I want to be a police officer. And everybody just took aback like, oh. And I was like, did you even ask him? Did you question him? Or did you just assume something because of his name and because of his religion? So that's an example of what I'm speaking of when I say the unnecessary trauma. So from that point on, until I began to homeschool him, he hated school. He went into school with a defense mechanism where he always felt like he had to explain himself. He started clamming up. He wasn't the social child that he was before this incident. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to give that example.
Because it was like they were attacking who he was at the core. And as a baby, he couldn't discern that it ain't about them and they just ignorant. He's looking at, wow, here I am going to this place every day where they're attacking who I am. Tell the audience your son's name and the meaning of his name.
His name is Jihad Naeem, and Jihad is my interpretation of why I chose Jihad is because it says it's to struggle within, to be better. You know, it's a war within self to become your best self. Mm-hmm. And Naeem only means with grace. So to struggle to become one with yourself with grace. So I named him Jihad Naeem.
To struggle with grace. And was there ever a conversation in the school of what that name meant? Did they say, yeah?
Even after that day in that conversation, the teacher actually began to find other things to find wrong with him. And initially, she flunked him. Kindergarten. How do you flunk kindergarten?
So she started picking, and her emotional trigger was, it overpowered her judgment and her ability to teach the child.
Exactly. And so just imagine, that's just the name. But imagine a child that's 5 years old who has a speech impediment, who doesn't read as fast as everyone else. And they're going to school every day. And as soon as they hit that door, that teacher automatically has her own judgment of that child from the time they walk in that door to the time they leave. This is what we're sending our children to.
Yeah, and they love to label everybody autistic and educably unable to be educated, some old stuff. They always coming up with these labels when, in fact, a lot of these children are brilliant and they just need somebody to work with them to work through some issues. But the brilliance is just on another level. And I can't imagine seeing a beautiful child like Brother Jihad go through that. And how long did he stay in that school system after that incident?
Unfortunately, I did not pull him out of school until he was in the 3rd grade, because at the time I was a single mother.
Okay.
And so, first of all, homeschooling was not a thing back then. I just want to be very clear.
This was 2001, no, 2006?
This is about 2006. Homeschooling wasn't a thing. Mm-hmm. Like, we had our MUIs, but homeschooling, it wasn't a thing. Matter of fact, when I first heard of homeschooling and someone suggested it to me, I didn't think I was smart enough to do it. I was like, oh, nope, not me.
Well, I was going to ask you, how did you then decide to homeschool him, and what is your background that put you in a position where you said, I got to do this for my baby?
It's a phenomenal story. The fact of the matter is, from there, that was in 2006. So we we kept pushing, and I got married in 2010, and my husband is a truck driver. And so at the time in 2010, 2011, the oil fields were jumping. Mm-hmm. So his job moved him to Louisiana. So we moved to Louisiana, and Louisiana was worse than Texas. Absolutely horrible educational system. And so what made me pull them out was two things. I have an older daughter, she's 26, and she was going to the school, and we were explaining to them that she had to wear a jacket that covered her bottom. You know, we understand she has to wear this color with these color pants, but she's gonna wear a cover over her to cover her bottom. And so they gave us a hard time about that.
Was it like a short skirt or something like that?
No, she wore pants.
Okay.
But they had to tuck in their shirts.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And so we would have her wear one of those, the sweaters that go to your knee.
Cardigan or something.
They were saying stuff like it's too hot for her to do that, and just all these excuses. So that was a problem for me. Then Jihad was across the street at the elementary, and the teacher was upset because he didn't talk. He doesn't talk. He doesn't want. He cries all the time. And now, mind you, this is from trauma from previous teachers. Mm-hmm. And she was upset because he just cried, and I could tell him to pick up a pencil, and he just break down, and I just can't have him in my class disrupting my class like this. So it had gotten to the point where Jihad could only go to school if he sat in the principal's office. Not that he did anything wrong, not that he was bullying children or anything like that. The teacher just couldn't deal with the fact that he would get emotional.
Yes.
So I said I would rather pull him out than for him to be in the principal's office like he's done something wrong.
Yeah.
And so a Sister Georgia, she was homeschooling her daughter, and she said, well, Sister JeanNate, why don't you just homeschool him? And I was like, I'm not smart enough to I only have a high school diploma. I barely received my high school diploma because I had my own trauma, because I didn't learn the way everyone else learned, which helps me as stepping stones. We'll get to that later. Mm-hmm. I didn't learn the way everyone else learned. And so, matter of fact, I didn't learn that I was going to graduate until a week before graduation.
Really?
Yes, ma'am. So with that being said, all kind of trauma I revisited, and I was like, I can't do it. But she was like, she told me, I don't know if it's true or not, but she said the messenger told us that the most uneducated MGT can teach their children better than the public school system. Mm. So I thought on that, and I prayed on it, and I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to see what I can do. So I called my mom, may Allah be pleased with her, MGT for over 30 years. She was like, what? No. Jayla's doing so good, and Jihad will just have to get over it. But it was still on me to do something different. I was at home.
Because you're watching the suffering every day, right? And then so you're like, I got to pull them out. So when you pulled them out, talk to me about the differences that you saw. Did Jihad start talking, and how did it impact them once they then started to become homeschooled?
Well, I'm going to say Jihad stopped breaking down the way that he would break down when my husband became a part of our family. Mm-hmm. Because my husband would tell him, you don't have to cry, just express yourself in words. Just say what's wrong. And those type of talks and conversations between dad and son brought him to the point where now today, if he feel like something isn't right, he doesn't hold back. And I don't know when was the last time I've seen him, probably at my mom's passing, he may have broke down then. Not that it's not okay to break down, but he just became more articulate with his words versus emotions.
Yes, just
Um,
expressing his emotions more. He felt safer.
exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. In homeschool, so what happened was me, Sister Georgia, and a brother named hmm, may Allah be pleased with him. I want to say Brother Ben. Brother Ben. He was an older brother. He had two girls. And we decided to come together and just have a homeschooling group. And it was Black Star Academy. And the study group coordinator was so beautiful enough that he said, okay, let's do it. You all just come to the study group whenever you need to come to the study group, and y'all can do it here. And so we just started homeschooling. And it was the hardest thing that I ever experienced in my life because at the time there wasn't anyone homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
So we were going to thrift stores trying to find things. We were going to Walmart trying to find things. We were using the teachings for English and reading. We would get Message to the Black Man out, Supreme Wisdom, those things. And so that's what we did. And then we had a little farm that we were trying to do in the back of the study group. So they got to get their hands in the dirt and, things like that. That's how we got started.
That's beautiful. Now, some people, when they think about homeschooling, they criticize it because they say that the children become socially stagnant because they're just at home learning. How do we supplement for the social side of things? And I'll make my comment about that later when we're homeschooling.
That's actually a true factor in homeschooling, Sister Sajda, because if you are a mom and a wife and a daughter and a sister, and you're in the mosque, you're active in the mosque, you're active in MGT class, you may come to the point where there's so much going on that you're not realizing that you're putting your child in the corner over here and saying, do this work. And you're walking off and doing all these other entities that it takes to be a beautiful Black woman in America, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So making sure you put that extra energy into finding extra things for them to do.
Yeah.
Making sure they're going to the mosque or the study group, they're going to junior MGT class or junior FOI class. We have so much that we have to do in our nation. I really don't feel like there's a way for us not to be social. But in the same aspect of that, we have to be conscious that there's other things other than the 3 R's, right? They can take swimming lessons. They
Mm-hmm.
can take tennis lessons.
Mm-hmm.
They can, take violin lessons, be a part of the city choir. There's city choirs out there for children that they can be a part of. There's many, they can join the community sewing club for children. It's actually taking the time out as a parent to research the things that they can do outside of home where they can still have their sociability.
Yeah. So you have to be intentional about
Mhm.
providing those quote unquote extracurricular activities. And I
Exactly.
think the beautiful thing is that if you're homeschooling and you are intentionally doing the social planning, you can provide things that also add to their educational ability. So it's
Exactly.
not like they're a part of an environment that is uncomfortable. And I think now there's so much talk, and this is probably such a taboo conversation, but I'm going to mention it anyway. There's so much about gender identification that people are really frustrated with in schools and at an early age. And I hear a lot of people say, hey, look, whatever you want to do is your business, but don't put that on my child at 5 or 6 years old.
Can you imagine that type of now? Our age, can you imagine that type of responsibility at 5 years old?
No,
At 4 years old? At
no.
7 or 8 years old? I couldn't imagine. I
It's
couldn't imagine.
it's really sad, and I think a lot of it also is programming. I'm going to go ahead and say that it just programming our children, because um, I don't know how you could possibly think that a 5-year-old would even be able to make a decision, or even I think even a child under 18 would be able to make a decision about their gender, right? Um, in the space, they don't, you can say, well, do you want to be a boy or a girl? They don't even know what a boy is, nor do they know what a girl is. I don't understand
In
that.
kindergarten, you're just beginning to learn and understand your own anatomy. That this is your nose, you smell from your nose. This is your mouth, you taste from your mouth. You're just learning your five senses and learning the anatomy of your own body, let alone someone else's.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's powerful. So now you start out as Black Star Academy, out of the study group. Now you have Stepping Stones online education. Tell us about your business and the services.
Sure. So Stepping Stones Online Education Group began actually in 2019. I was striving to do a brick and mortar outside of my home, because by this time we are about almost 15 years in of me doing this education thing. And one thing that I learned in my journey is how hard it is to put things together, especially if you're on a budget.
Mm-hmm.
So, me and my husband married in 2010. My husband had 5 children that he was taking care of. I had 4 children. Together, we had 9.
Okay.
And he took care of his 5 children, and he took care of mine by the grace of Allah. So, with that being said, budget was very, very, very tight. I mean, literally, my mom was sneaking money to me for this homeschooling journey. So, one of the things that I wanted to do, and I didn't know how I was going to do it, I said, one day I want to put something in place to help parents who want to homeschool, but I want to make it affordable, because I wanted my children to go to MUI. I had to work at MUI for my children to go to MUI because I couldn't afford to pay. I loved it. I loved the response. I loved the sociability they had. But then when I had to go to work, they had to stop going to MUI, right? So anyway, long story short, I wanted to bring something to the table for our people that was affordable. So I started outside my home, $50 a week for the 4 students that I had. I have 4. So that wasn't helping.
Were they your own?
No, I'm not even including my own. I'm saying
Okay.
right. So I was like, okay, I have to step back and look at this. It's not helping my husband. So I went back into the school building as a cafeteria lady.
Mm-hmm.
So as a cafeteria
lady.
lady, yes, ma'am, I was a cafeteria manager. But the children loved me. They would come in and they'd say, "Hey, Miss Jean," and I tell them, "Now you know you don't want that. Don't get that over there, because I'm still how to eat to live conscious.
Mm-hmm.
I have to manage this food, but I don't have to make them eat this food, right?" Mm-hmm. So I tell them, I'd be the one to say, "Baby, get your vegetables now. Make sure you get your vegetables. I see all of that junk in your plate. Where's your vegetables?" So the children just love me to the point they say, "I have my vegetables today. You see my..."
Yeah.
And so one of the students was like, "I'm having such a hard time with math." I said, "Well, come to the cafeteria after school. I'll see what I can do to help you." And so I started helping her, and she started crying, and she's like, "I didn't understand it like this." So she came back and she showed me she made 100. Long story short, things happened where stuff started getting shut down in 2020, right?
Because of COVID, right?
Right. And so I was really debating on if I wanted to go back to work. But I decided to go back to work when things started opening up. And I think I stayed there for a month because everyone around me started getting sick. And so I came home and I told my husband, I said, what do you think about me doing homeschool online? Because I saw everybody was going back online. And I did a summer program. I forgot to tell you that. I did a summer program that summer and
Okay.
it caught fire. And so people were emailing me like, are you doing a homeschool? Are you doing homeschool?
I see. Okay, got it.
I was like, no, I'm going back to work. That was just a summer program. And so I ended up starting Stepping Stones with the sister who helped me for free with my summer program. It was me and her and another sister that I knew from Detroit because I was the director of MUI Detroit for a moment in time. And so I called her and I asked her, hey, are you doing anything right now? And she said no. So she came aboard. And then two sisters I know in Dallas, they came aboard. And we just accepted everyone that would come for whatever they could afford. I was asking for $50 a week, but whatever they could afford, we would work with. And that was the first year. And for some reason, the parents loved it and they started telling people about it. So that first year, I think we had like 15 students.
Okay.
The next year, we had 40 students. So I had to hire more brothers and sisters. And this year, we have a total of 81 students.
Look at that.
That's crazy.
And that's the Online Educational Academy.
Yes, online education group.
Education group.
So what we do is we have science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. We have Islamic studies. We have Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. We have the core classes. And now, starting in October, we just received a grant. And with that grant, we will have an after-school program for.
You froze, Sister JeanNate. But it looks like she said that she just got a grant and she has an after-school program that she's going to be doing for free. Listen, talk about a journey. How powerful is that? Are you back, Sister JeanNate? Let's see if she's back with us. Looks. Listen, when we talking about a journey and we talking about being steadfast and hanging in there and being strong, she went from 4 students to 40 students to 80 students to now having a grant for an after-school program. What a blessing. And it's very, very important that we understand, if nothing else, if you don't buy into homeschooling and if you don't buy into pulling your children out of public schools, then finding ways to supplement that education, both academically, in terms of also teaching them trades, but then also with experiences and helping them to develop socially, then you're missing the mark. We can't leave it up to this world to educate our children and to mold them into what it is that they want them to be. And I'll tell you, and even going further, I'll be a little selfish for a minute. Even as an entrepreneur, it's important for us to have a pipeline of students so that when we start to build businesses, we can say, all right, I'm going to go to this pool of educated students to pull from, to train, to teach, and have them to learn and run my business, as opposed to going out here into a world where maybe people don't have the same standards. I will tell you, as an employer for now many years, and at one point I was working with close to somewhere around 40 employees, it's tough. It's hard to find people who are engaged, who really actually want to go to work, who aren't just about the paycheck. Some people could care less. Sometimes you look at these beautiful resumes and education that oftentimes they have, and they could just care less about education. So if you want to, We Didn't Get Sisters website, I will make sure that I post it. Stepping Stones educational group. She does after school program. This is a great way for you to either homeschool your children or to offer supplemental education for your children while they're in whatever school system that you have them in. So thank you for joining us today. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the page. Make sure everybody likes and subscribes to the page. And then make sure you tune in Saturday morning for the proper handling of people. This is a course, or a series, I should say, that even the children, even our youth can learn and enjoy, because it's almost like customer service and handling people a certain way is such a lost art. And let's bring back that art. Let's bring back the art and the finesse of properly handling one another. So I'll see you all soon. Make sure you donate. Don't chip and dip me. I just introduced you to yet another industry disruptor and emerging new market leader, Sister JeanNate Muhammad, and her company, Stepping Stones Educational Group. See you soon. And I will, I'll go live. I'll do a live tomorrow. I got some really powerful and cool stuff I'm working on that I can't wait to share with you all. So make that donation, and I will see you all very soon. Look, I'm going to play, I have a commercial that's got some tips on time management for those of you who are interested in just kind of some of the sub-products and sub-subjects or byproducts or by-subjects that we are working through with the proper handling of people. Last week we talked about, I had a commercial I aired about etiquette, and I had another commercial about empathy. And so this one is about time management. So take a listen, and I'll see you all Saturday at 6 a.m. Central Time, right here on the Sajda Wendy Muhammad YouTube channel. See you soon.
Thank you.